No, when he says their time's up, I'll say something if they're still talking. What is this? Oh, that's your franchise fee thing.
Yeah, yep. It's just a hard copy. So you can follow along if you can't see it up there.
Good evening, everybody, and welcome to the Ottumwa City Council meeting. It's 5:30, so I'm going to call our meeting to order. And if everybody would rise, we're going to say the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. First on the agenda is roll call.
Councilmember Galloway.
Here.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Here.
Councilmember Hull.
Here.
Councilmember Pope.
Here.
Councilmember Rowe.
Here.
Mayor Johnson.
Here. The next item on the agenda is our consent agenda this evening. Would somebody like to make a motion to approve tonight's consent agenda?
So moved. Second.
Any further discussion? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Yes.
Councilmember Hull.
Yes.
Councilmember Pope.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
The next item is to approve tonight's agenda for the city council meeting. Do we have a motion to approve tonight's agenda?
So moved.
Second.
Any further discussion? Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway.
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre.
Yes.
Councilmember Hull.
Yes.
Councilmember Pope.
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
The next item is the city administrator's report, so I'm going to turn it over to Phil.
Thank you, Honorable Mayor. The first item on the agenda is receiving a quarterly presentation and update from the Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress. And I don't know, Mark, were you handling this?
Yes.
Okay. And I'll turn it over to Mark Rowe, who is head of GoPIP.
Okay. Every quarter we'll be making these presentations to the Ottumwa City Council regarding the contract between the City of Ottumwa and Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress. This is just a general update on the initiatives that GoPIP is working on at the time. And this would be the first meeting to cover that contract. Before we get started on what has happened over the last quarter, this is a good opportunity for me to talk just a little bit about what Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress is, because I think that there has been a lot of confusion in the community as to what exactly the organization is, what it's supposed to be doing. So with that, Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress was formed about 4 years ago with the merge of the Ottumwa Area Economic Development Corporation and the Ottumwa Area Chamber of Commerce. And with that, Main Street Ottumwa, Ottumwa Convention and Visitors Bureau, which is now called Meet Ottumwa, and Bridgeview Center, Inc. Since that time, Bridgeview Center, Inc., Main Street Ottumwa, and Meet Ottumwa have went back on their own, which has left Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress as what was the legacy Ottumwa Area Chamber of Commerce and Ottumwa Economic Development Corp. So when you hear somebody say, what's the chamber? Do we still have a chamber? Yes, we still have a chamber. That chamber is just renamed as Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress. And same goes if somebody's asking for the economic development arm of the community. That's Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress also. So what we are in detail is over 247 Ottumwa and Wapello County businesses and nonprofits, educational institutions, governmental bodies such as the City of Ottumwa, Wapello County Supervisors, the Ottumwa School District, Indian Hills Community College, and private investors. And with that, economic development partners. And I can't stress this enough, it's the community members themselves. Because if we don't have the community supporting us, then it's going to be hard to accomplish what we're doing. Pointing the wrong way here. Oops. One of the things that we did when we looked at the reorganization of Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress this year was making sure that we were serving the right cause. And when we looked at the structure of the organization, we wanted to make sure that we were forming the organization from a position of servant leadership. And the best way to do that is to create a chart of a board chart that reminds our board of directors, that reminds all of the staff that we work for our investors, that we work for our community. So this is a little bit in reverse of what you would typically see in a organizational chart. Usually you see your board of the directors at the top, you see your executive committee or executive director at the top. We flip that upside down because, again, if we don't have our community partners, if we don't have our investors, we don't have jobs, we don't have a purpose in the community. The other thing that we did through this process was looked at our vision, mission, and goals for the organization to make sure that they were aligning properly with what we were trying to do in the community, and they didn't. So we changed that. We made sure that what we were working for is what we strive to see the community in the next 5 years. So we changed the mission to Greater Ottumwa Partners in Progress as an economic and community development organization collaboratively advancing the prosperity of the Ottumwa region. Region is important here because region wasn't something that GoPIP necessarily had focused on in the past. The word region really encompasses all of Wapello County. And we can only do so much as a community. If we want to have true economic and quality of life gains, we really have to focus as the county. So we made sure to put in the mission that we are focusing on the entire region. And part of that is the vision of a vibrant and thriving Ottumwa region. And how are we going to do that? We're going to do that with the values of collaboration. We're going to do it through leadership, through innovation. We're going to do that with integrity. We're going to do that by advocacy and by communication. We also looked at our overarching goals and determined that the goals that we had in place in the previous years didn't model what we're looking at currently and what we intend to see in the future. So we set a new set of goals with organizational strength, marketing and awareness, business recruitment and retention, and quality of life. These 4 goals will serve GoPIP and the community in a positive light over the next 4 to 5 years. So looking at the changes that we've made since March, we have restructured the organization to use a economic development working committee as opposed to a staffing approach. The reason that we did that was to make sure that we had all of the people at the table that we needed when we were making decisions. Economic development is a slow running demon to begin with, but to complicate that with adding bottlenecks through the process with financing, with being able to make general structural decisions, so to speak, we figured that the Working Economic Development Committee is a better approach. So far, that's been working fantastically for us. We've brought in the model of proactive engagement, and we're working with that both internally and externally throughout the community, and we're shifting our priorities from what GoPIP had modeled in the past to what the community really needs walking into the future. From a perspective of investor relations, we're reactivating our investor networking. We're redoing our advocacy and educational opportunities and offering those again. Communication engagement with our investors and through that with the community, and then data analysis. Some examples here that I have up on the screen are our legislative advocacy efforts through the eggs and issues that we're doing on a bi-monthly basis, quarterly basis, and our monthly online educational series that we're offering to our investors starting this month. One of the biggest things when you look at GoPIP and the city of Ottumwa from the outside looking in is web presence. And one of the things that we noticed was our website was great for economic development, but that was only half of our business model. So we went through and remapped the entire website. What you're seeing here is the menu of our remapped website that very clearly delineates for what service that you're looking for within the GoPIP website. You can very easily find it. Most people only spend a few seconds on a website. That's a statistical fact. If they can't find what they're looking for, they go somewhere else. So we made it very easy for people to navigate this site. We've added a bunch of features to the site. One feature that didn't exist in the past was starting a business. If we're going to be the place that people are looking for business opportunities, it's probably best that we have some place for them to go to start a business. We've put those pieces on our website now. Another key initiative that GoPIP has is gender equity and inclusion. And that was not previously on the website. That is on the website now. There are a lot of electronic media pieces that were not on the website prior, and they are now as well. Additionally, one of the things that we noticed is people are using our website for looking for properties in the community, looking for buildings in the community. That was an area that we were having difficulty updating in the past, and is one of the most traveled areas into our website and into the community. That's an area that was addressed and is now taken care of, and people can go on there and find the most up-to-date MLS listings. For public education, we have made presentations to Kiwanis, Rotary, Wapello County Supervisors. We've made presentations to leadership in the City of Eldon, the City of Agency to this point. We've made presentations to Iowa Works, League of United Latin American Citizens, and the Ottumwa Leadership Academy with a twofold intention. Number one, to educate them on what GoPIP is, how GoPIP can help them, and number two, to form good partnerships going into the future, because without any of these organizations, progress really isn't possible. And speaking of information, one of the things that we have launched over the last couple of months is a new podcast series utilizing current technology and social media called Talk Ottumwa. And the purpose of this podcast is to focus on economic development initiatives that are going on in Wapello County and to promote the business that exists in Wapello County. Business attainment is one thing. Business retention is altogether something different. And this is a great way for us to have those business leaders and to really talk about their business in a way that they haven't been able to do that in the past. So far, we're seeing some pretty good success out of that. People are listening to it. People are subscribing to it. Every episode that we launch is getting more and more traction. So just as I'm not going to read these to you, obviously, but we've had several of these key people in to talk about these initiatives and these businesses. And there is a secondary mission to this as well, in the fact that communication, be it through social media, through the city, through any of the organizations here in town, it's hard to get the message out about a particular item in 30-second clips. This takes care of that problem. This is available for everybody to listen to, and people can talk at length as long as they need to get the message across. For example, just looking at the Sportsplex, for example, that was a good opportunity for the listeners to learn everything from the beginning to where we sit today on the Sportsplex. So if anybody is interested in learning more about that, they can easily get on there and get that information. And with our online presence, we've started data collection with all of our social media and web sites. For the growth that we've seen has been good over the last 3 months, with making several changes, making several renewed attempts at getting our name out there. The GoPIP website, since we've remodeled it, has seen 11,000 page views, and the top pages is the lowest site, which again is the location one, which is people coming in to look at available properties and buildings in Ottumwa, and then of course the Ottumwa News link that's on there. Our Facebook page has seen 12% organic growth. That's not paid since 4/1 of 22. Our Instagram has seen 7% organic growth since 4/1 of 22. And then we're launching a TikTok page in the coming weeks. In the effort to become more community-minded, GoPIP has reached out to start building partnerships with several community organizations and businesses, those being Indian Hills Community College. For advocacy efforts, the Iowa Chamber Alliance, Professional Developers of Iowa, South Central Iowa Workforce Development Board, League of United Latin American Citizens, and Dolly Parton Imagination Library. We've begun sponsoring community events to show that we are in this together. And so far, the list that we have there, Ottumwa Pride, 25 Million Cook, Be the Light, Viva International Festival, Seton Catholic School First Resources, and Impact Life are just some of the ones that we've taken part in sponsorship opportunities to date. We've been engaging like we have not engaged in the past with Mission 500 being a part of that steering committee, the Parks Plan Visioning Resilient Communities, Wapello County Children's Alliance, Wapello County Child Care Coalition, and the Diversity Committee. Current economic initiatives that we're working on, that we have been working on and continue to work on, are the Ottumwa Regional Airport Analysis, Rail Expansion Project, Child Care Initiative, Retail Attraction, and then of course our Helgerson Flats certified site. And in the last 3 months, here's just a quick snapshot of the economic development activity that we've taken part in. We have sent in one RFI for a major industrial manufacturer to this community. We, in conjunction with the city of Ottumwa, made a presentation, or we made our presence at the ICSC conference in Las Vegas. We've sent one RFI out for a clothing chain. We've sent 4 cold outreach RFIs to 2 clothing stores, 1 discount retailer, and 1 restaurant.
Hey, Mark,
And-
before you go on, can you just identify what RFI is for people
Sorry,
who do not
request for information.
know? Thank you.
And then a housing, facilitating a potential housing project in the Ottumwa area. And then lastly, quality of life initiatives. These are all new projects that we'll be working on. So we will be partaking and leading a community active positivity campaign, which I'm super excited about, that will be beginning in August of this year. And March of 2023, we're planning a regional diversity, equity, and inclusion event. And in June of 2023, we'll be planning a regional tourism, health, and business event. And with that, if anybody has any questions, I would be happy to entertain them.
I guess from those RFIs, have you received any feedback, information back, or correspondence?
No, because they've been all within the last 3 to 4 weeks, quite honestly.
Perfect, thank you.
Does council have any other questions for Mark? Appreciate the presentation.
All right. Thank you, Mark. The next item I have on the agenda is a presentation regarding franchise fees. There are 4 items that will be up for public hearing in the agenda in just a moment. They're all related, relating to franchise fees, and so that might be more ideal to do one presentation here on all 4 of those. And if there's questions about any of the specific items as they come up, 2 revenue purpose statements and 2 ordinances that will be up later on in the agenda. All right, let's see. Recently, I was asked to present before a local civic group. I opened that meeting by asking them to identify what they thought were the top issues impacting the city. Their responses are on the left there. Not surprising to most of us, housing, roads, quality of life, city finances, poverty, drugs, high tax rate. Well, in all fairness, I had created my own list ahead of them, and as you can see, it pretty much matches up almost identical there. The one thing that I probably had different than them was staffing, that inside baseball that I had as far as the staffing woes we've had with public safety and parks over the last 10 years. So how did we get here? Well, some of the things that I would say, levy constraints, the way that the tax structure works for the city. We've also had governmental mandates, such as the CSO project that we've had to try to work through, and spending tens of millions of dollars in that infrastructure to separate the sewer systems has kind of focused most of our capital planning and spending over the last several years and into the future. And on top of that, we do have aging infrastructure, whether that's streets, sewer lines, storm sewer, et cetera. And that would also include buildings and vehicles. That's kind of jeopardized the financial sustainability of our community and how we look at things. The general fund revenues from taxes are locked in. It provides a limited source of dollars that have to be distributed across all the services that we provide. Just a quick reminder here, and you've seen this during the budget sessions. This is looking at our tax rate by category here. The very bottom there is our general fund. That is maxed out at $8.10. The next one is the other special revenue funds. That has decreased a little bit, and that is because of the transition of transit over to 1015. The orange is a very thin line there is emergency services. Debt service is the blue, darker blue line, and you can see that has increased over the last couple years. And the top one, the green, is our trust and agency. That is the benefits where anything that's in the general fund above $8.10 can spill over into that, and has. The last couple of years, we were able to shrink that a little bit, which has helped us reduce our overall tax levy. What it hasn't done, however, is assisted us in paying for all the services that come out of that general fund, the $8.10. Right now, or in fiscal year 22, the city was number 5 as far as highest tax cities in the state. Not a top 5 list that we really want to be on. Our next closest comparison city, Fort Dodge, was $1.80 lower in their municipal levy. Now, when you take all of the combined levies, they're actually just above us, but their municipal levy is lower. So what does the $8.10 in the general fund go for? It goes for public safety. 68% of that general fund dollars goes to public safety right now. 3% to public works. Now, don't get me wrong, we are spending more than that on public works. Most of that is coming out of other funds, though. Project funds, road use tax, things like that. Community and economic development, health and social services, that's their planning and building code enforcement. Culture, recreation, the beach, the parks, the transfers we make to those other entities, and general government. There simply isn't enough revenue to pay for all of those services, and that's where we've had these transfers out into the trust and agency fund. We've done other things like deferring capital and moving some of those things that were at one time paid for out of the general fund, such as police squads, got moved into capital. That is one of the things that increased our debt service fund, while at the same time trying to just maintain the service levels paid for out of the $8.10. One of the reasons why we have this issue is when you have a maximum of $8.10, the only way that you're going to get more revenue is if you have a higher assessed valuation. The ones on the left in the magenta or the pink, those are the two on the far left are the city. The one to the middle or the right pinkish one is the average of all the other cities. And in the blue are comparison cities, the communities that are about the same size as us. And you can see that we are well below the average, even though we've had a nice $50 million increase in valuation year over year this last year. unfortunately with this though, with that assessed valuation and that growth, there is always that lagging effect. It takes years sometimes for to have the value come in to be realized by the city. So here's how the property tax formula works. In order to get to levy the dollars collected, you apply the rate against the taxable value. The rate, in this case for the general fund, is maxed out at $8.10. Taxable valuation is the portion of the market value of property that can be taxed. And that is then divided by 1,000, and that gives us the amount of dollars that we receive. In order to increase the levy, either the rate or the valuation or both would need to increase. And when we cannot increase the maximum of that $8.10, we can only look to increase the valuation to get more dollars. When we're up against the maximum levy, sometimes tough budgetary decisions need to be made. I mentioned some of the things that have been done before. We've pushed eligible operating costs into capital or debt. We started doing that a few years ago. That only had the effect of increasing the debt service levy then. We deferred capital projects and maintenance. One of the biggest complaints I think we hear, whether it's on social media or directly into the city, is the roads. And that is all capital infrastructure. We put more dollars into the last few years, but there's still cost that goes into that. We've deferred maybe replacing vehicles or other equipment. Over time, that can just end up costing more. Repairs to buildings may go on and not get done. In future years, that'll then just cost more, or the problems become worse, thereby making a higher cost. We've rolled eligible expenses into other levies. I mentioned the benefits. When we didn't have enough in the general fund, we pushed that into trust and agency. That was just to be able to maintain that same level of service we were providing. One of the other things that has unfortunately happened is reduced staffing or service levels. Sorry. Right here is a trend of over the last 10 years. In 2013, we had 139 employees that were paid for out of the general fund. By the end in 2021, we were down to 113. We lost 26 employees over that time. Now, that's not to say that we necessarily needed to have all of those employees. You have technology improvements, you have other things that might happen. But in the end, when you're still trying to provide the same level of services, having less people makes it a little bit more difficult for that to occur. A lot of this was just because of not having revenue sufficient to pay for those salaries. One of the biggest hits, the biggest drop here is that dark blue at the top. That is parks and cemetery and beach. They lost 15 full-time equivalent positions over that 10-year period. The other one that I want to point out is the green. That was the most recent drop in 21. That was the 6 firefighter positions that were mentioned. And although I think we would all love to see engaged citizens coming to all of our council meetings, this was my first council meeting, and this was the time when the budget was being presented that was talking about cutting those 6 firefighter positions. You can see the attendance there. There was people still coming in from the hallway. It was standing room only. It was a nice welcome to the community, but not one that you really want to be facing. In my experience, when the budget is so tight that you're talking about cutting public safety, whether that's police, fire, et cetera, you're in a real mess. And you pretty much pulled out all of the other budgetary tricks, done all of the other things. And if you remember that, not only was that presented, but that went through at that time. Now we were able to bring back 3 of those firefighters, and that was due in large part to the increased valuation this last year. We don't have another $50 million of new value coming on the books this next year. So if we're looking at bringing back other positions, we need additional revenue coming in. One suggestion that was made at this time was talking about, as far as trying to retain those firefighters, was looking at franchise fees. It had been researched by the city prior to my arrival for, I think, probably a couple of years before that. and it had not passed. At the March 17th meeting, I did acknowledge the franchise fees, but I also noted that it wasn't the right time back at that time. When the taxes were as high as they were, adding that fee on top of that just didn't make sense. Since that time, we've been working diligently to put the city in a better financial position, to put that tax rate in a better position, to be able to consider this revenue tool. And with the reduction of this next year's levy of $1 per thousand, I believe this is the right time to present franchise fees. So what is a franchise fee? A franchise fee is a new revenue source. It's provided for and governed under Iowa Code 384.3A. It's a means to provide revenue to municipality for specific purposes, which two of the public hearings will be about the revenue purpose statement. Each percent that is generated, it's estimated to generate $537,000 of revenue. So for each percent that we look at, and a maximum of 5% could be assessed, each percent would be $537 of revenue. The franchise fee is a user fee. It's assessed as a percentage of gross revenue upon the utility bill, as I mentioned, up to a maximum of 5%. It does replace the local option sales tax for the affected utilities. It's paid quarterly to the city, and it's placed into a segregated fund for expenses identified under that revenue purpose statement. What a franchise fee is not, it is not a tax. Although the calculation is based upon the usage, franchise fees are paid by the same rate by all utility users, regardless of their taxable status. So even those entities that are tax exempt still pay the user fee. For example, you may have the school district, churches, other entities that still utilize police, fire, the roads, anything that we're providing services for that aren't currently paying into the taxes would be paying under the utility fees, and that would be going into public safety or other costs under the revenue purpose statement. As of October 25th, 21, there were 217 communities identified across Iowa with a franchise fee, and that's about 1 out of every 4. So the cost and drawbacks of franchise fees. Well, aside from what that would cost the individual utility payer, the increased cost there, as I mentioned, the local option sales tax revenue would go away for those utilities. This graph right here is a reflection of who is the recipient of the current 1% local option sales tax. The blue chunk of the wheel is the city. That makes up 64.5%. The green larger chunk, or next larger chunk, is Wapello County, the unincorporated areas, and the yellowish orange would be the other municipalities inside the county. Those are the entities that receive those funds. For the city, that'd be about $346,000. For the county, it's 160 to 180, and then about another 25,000 for the remaining communities. Based upon estimations, the gas and electric bills alone for the local option sales tax makes up about 10%. So in other words, if we got $1 million out of local option sales tax, 100,000 of that would be from those two utilities. The rest would be from all the other stores and other avenues that we receive local option sales tax from. On the flip side, if we were to get revenue from the franchise fees, foregoing the local option sales tax for those utilities, we'd get about another 4.5 times that in additional revenue. The ratepayers already get that 1% local option sales tax that they're paying in. Tonight, we'll be talking about the possibility of a 3% franchise fee. That means there'd be an additional 2% that they would pay on top of what they're currently paying, or $2 for every $100 on the utility bill. It's estimated right now the average utility user could see an increase of about $4.30 per month. And that would obviously fluctuate based upon the season and other factors. So what are the benefits of franchise fees? These are some of the items or summaries of items that are in the revenue purpose statement. But in general, there are areas where we could look to provide new revenue streams, support functions associated with the general fund, creating a stable workforce, reversing the trend of that curve you saw earlier, relieve debt service and flatten the bond issuance curve. Additionally, promote growth of the tax base and economic development. All of these things could help provide a continued reduction in the tax levy. So where we've started to decrease that, continuing that trend. Excuse me. There's also the potential for the increased quality of services or potentially adding additional services as needed. And one of the most important things, I think, as I mentioned, is that equity. Most property tax exempt properties require utilities. Therefore, everybody would be contributing to those services that we are providing. And finally, it's an investment in the community. It's a long-term approach towards fiscal sustainability. New value in the community is a benefit not only for the city, but also for the county. Excuse me. So this is a reflection of our tax rate over the last few years. As you can see, we peaked in 2010, came down a little bit, in 2020, came down just slightly in 21, 22 came down a little bit, about 23 cents, and in this last year, $1. So the trend is favorable. I want to continue to lower that trend. In order to do that, we need to find ways to impact the revenue into the general fund. Going back to that picture from a few moments ago, in February 2020, when the city was recommending a reduction of 6 firefighters, excuse me, this was something that was brought up. Again, that was not the right time. All the other cards have been played. All the other tricks were there. The only thing we hadn't done at that time was franchise fees. With the reduction in these tax rates, I believe now would be the right time for that. It's a little bit smaller for you to see there at home. I apologize. Excuse me. Based upon data from the 2040 comprehensive plan, the median home value is $73,400. At $1 reduction per thousand, that would be an estimated property tax reduction of $73.40 for someone at a value home of $73,400. On the flip side, with the proposed change in utilities, the average estimated utility bill combined between gas and electric is $215 per month. Some will be higher, some will be lower. That would equate to $4.30 per month, or just under $52 per year. If you have the average person, the average median house value, and the average usage, you would actually see a $20 decrease year over year combined. That is why I believe now is the right time to consider incorporating the opportunity for this additional revenue. With the drop in that municipal tax rate and the ability for property owners to see a reduction in their taxes, some even enough to offset the anticipated increase in utility costs. Even in a less than ideal scenario, for about $5 a month, excuse me, Ottumwa would be able to increase its revenue to hire back several positions lost over the years, including public safety, consider adding additional services, complete capital projects and flatten the debt service level, continue to reduce our trust in agency, increase our code enforcement efforts, increase our economic development and growth programs, which thereby increases our value or lowers our levy, continue to lower the municipal property tax levy. All in all, addressing the concerns that were identified by that public group in the first slide and what I've seen in the city in my 2.5 years that I'm here. And I guess take any questions now or reserve them for the public hearing.
Does council have any questions for Phil?
You reserve them for the public hearing? Okay.
I told him I would reserve any comments for the public hearing.
I'll wait for them to.
Do you have anything else?
No, that was it. Thank you.
Okay. Brian Morgan, one of the Wapello County Board of Supervisors, had asked to go ahead and speak a little bit about the city's plan to implement franchise fees after Phil's report. So I'm gonna go ahead and allow him to do that now.
Thank you. Brian Morgan, 2633 Meadowdale. I've thought a lot the last couple weeks of what to present to you guys, what to talk to you about. And I had a lot of things written out here, and really a lot of what you brought up tonight and your presentation for Chamber and Economic Development really kind of steadfast put me on a different path. There's a lot of things in your presentation that I find interesting. A lot of things of where we're at right now, guys, is sometimes chickens come home to roost. And when you make a decision, it's got to be paid for. Whether that's giving a raise for $2 for one department, whether that's tiffing half your town, whether that's giving other tax breaks, it all affects your general fund. And we've said it for years. So for there to be a surprise of this now is just, so as we talked about the property tax levy, you did lower the tax levy. That's great. I believe you're probably going to collect somewhere around $665,000 more in taxes next year. Does that sound about right?
Yeah.
Because by the
somewhere
sheets
in there.
here,
Yeah.
from what you guys, from last year and this year, that you sent to the auditor that goes to the state. So you lowered people's tax levy, but you didn't lower their tax burden, because home sales around the country right now are crazy, through the roof. So valuations have went up, which then allows us to lower that tax levy. Makes us feel good. We are trying to give back to those citizens, all the while keep our operations running. You brought up the CSO. Where's those paid out of? The CFO bonds? Mostly sewer tax? Mostly sewer tax. Probably about 8 years ago, we redone the local option sales tax. I was sitting right there where Kara is when we decided how we were going to do it. And I believe that was roads, sewers, property tax relief, I believe. Is that correct? Because of that time, a huge burden coming onto the taxpayers of Wapello County, of Ottumwa, was the sewer rate increase. Projected out, I think we're going to be at probably $160 for a sewer rate right now, or whatever, if we didn't do something different. So now to the franchise fees. I'm not here as a county supervisor saying, please don't take our money. I'm past that. We're going to be all right. We'll be fine. Is there things that's going to have to sacrifice? Yes. There's going to be $160,000 in projects that won't get funded. That's okay. I guess I'm here more as a citizen and as an elected official, that I think sometimes we get to a point that we forget who we represent. And through the whole presentation, I hear $5, $4.30. And what we've done to help the people by lowering the tax levy, even though their tax burden probably wasn't lowered. I have the ability as a supervisor to excuse people's taxes, suspend them. So what we do, a person can't pay their property taxes. Let's say you can't pay your property taxes, you're low income, you come to us, here's what I get a month, here's what my taxes are. I can't pay them, I'm going to lose my house. I only see that number going up. I think as through the whole presentation went, and you repeated this several times, then wasn't the time, now is. And we focused on one thing, the property tax levy. Electric prices, utility prices, since the first of the year, they're up 31%. Food prices across the board, well over 20%. Milk, eggs, bread, flour, essentials, nearly 30%. Who's that affecting? Let's remember who we totally represent. Gas prices need no explanation. Record high gas prices. I'm not here tonight to ask you to vote no. I'm here to ask you tonight to pull this for now. Now is not the time. We have the highest inflation in 40 years. Every time you open the paper or turn on the TV, that's what we see, right? Folks, our friends, our neighbors, our businesses in this town, and this is what leads me to the economic development chamber side of things. Have we went out and actually talked to business, not tried to sell businesses on this? Have we went out and talked to businesses about how they're affected? Because in my business, it's $30 a month. I can tell you right now, and I am in a majority, customer count is down. Gross sales are up. Profit is down. I used to sell, you got to get this into a total perspective. I sold a chicken sandwich 2 years ago for $7, 6-ounce chicken breast, $60 for the case. I don't sell it anymore, but I happened to look the other day, $125 for that case. I can't sell that chicken sandwich for $14. I could sell it for $9, but that means every one of those I sell, I'm losing money on. I'm one small business. An extra $400 a year, that's not a big deal. What about everything else I have to deal with? My insurance is going up. There's a large employer in town that fixes a lot of things. Their fuel bill went from $50,000 a month to $85,000 a month. Guess who gets to pay that? I do. I have something that breaks, it rolls downhill. As I said, we only see these these tax suspensions going up, and I will try to wrap it up here, guys. But I did want to read a couple of these to you that I pulled out that did kind of hit me. And again, this is who we represent. To whom it may concern, I'm writing to let you know I'm unable to pay my property taxes. With the utilities, food, and medicine, it's just not enough. Thank you. It's public record. You can look and see who it is, but already can't pay. And this one here hit me really. To whom it may concern, we received a letter yesterday of notice of taxes due and pending tax sale. The entire total is $1,568. Today I paid $600. So here's a person that's doing their best to pay their property taxes toward that bill. We're in dire straits. I also have another question. I know that people who owe fines can do community service to help pay the fines. Is there any way I can do community service to help pay my property taxes? I beg the board to take in consideration we're below poverty level. Also raising 2 grandsons, which in Ottumwa and Wapello County is not rare. I think we all know that. So we're still a community. In 1973, Morels locked their doors. Before me, before several of you up here. Sorry, Mac, Sandra. But people scattered. They went to, some got lucky, got on at John Deere. Others maybe a Wausau Home or an Everco, which then a few years later closed. I'll speak from experience of my grandpa. 20 years at Morels. Bounced around, odd jobs, peddled watermelons on street corners. I was right there with him, loved it. Always made a living, and he ended up retiring as a city bus driver. Didn't get to do it long enough where his IPERS was really much to amount to a whole lot, but great thing when he retired, he got that Morel pension, $54, which paid about half of his supplemental insurance on top of his $800 Social Security. We still have a lot of people in this community that were and are good, hardworking people. And right now, they're hurting. And it's not a class of people. It's not a group of people. It's all of us. And I think if you truly sit down with a lot of your chamber people, sit down with a lot of your constituents, and again, don't try to get to know them and how will this affect them? I simply ask, I know where you're at with the franchise fees. I get it. 100%. We deal with a budget as well, guys. I just don't think now's the time. I think if you did it a year ago, before 40% inflation and everything else, it'd be pretty tough for me to stand up here and argue that point. But I'm as guilty as anyone else. I get involved in different things and different programs in town and hang out with different groups of people. 70% of the people in this town are people we represent, and they need us to think about them, not just how do we get someone else in to mow. I mean, the Parks Department, you go back 40 years, there's over 40 people. And Mr. Parker could tell you when he was Parks Commissioner, they had arborists. They had people that, what do we do now? We contract that out, which then helps another local business. So I think all in all, I just beg you that right now for the citizens of Ottumwa, for small businesses of Ottumwa, for everyone right down the line, please reconsider doing this right now. Let's look down the road and hopefully in a year, 2 years, hopefully things are better for all of us. We know this ain't going to last forever, but I just, again, ask that you think of the entire population and it's easy to get in the weeds. I know it. I respect that, but thank you guys all for your time.
Thank you, Brian. Phil, do you have anything else in your administrator's report?
No, I can address those other items later on.
Okay. Next on our agenda is the point where I ask if there's anybody in the audience that wants to speak on any of the agenda items in tonight's agenda. Because we'll have you do that when we get to that portion. But I just want to know.
These sheets, does that suffice?
We've got one, Keith, for you.
Thank you, sir.
Does anybody want to speak that hasn't filled out one of these sheets? You did fill one out?
Is it up here already?
Katie Howard? Okay, yeah, we have it. Okay. Next item is departmental recommendations and reports. So I'll let Chris go ahead and start.
Okay. Beach Ottumwa fees, recommendation approve the fee increases for the Beach Ottumwa.
Do we have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second.
Gene, I believe you're going to discuss this.
Yes, thank you, Your Honor. Demand for birthday parties and private rentals has been very high at the Beach Ottumwa for the past 2 years. In addition, all part-time and seasonal employees at the beach received a $2 per hour pay increase during the winter months. These factors have created an opportunity to generate more revenue for the beach by raising fees. The fees are listed below. We'd like to raise the indoor birthday party fee to $110, the outdoor birthday party fee to $130, the indoor private party rental fee to $90 per hour, and the summer entire facility rental fee to $450 per hour. These fee increases were approved by the Ottumwa Parks Advisory Board at their meeting on July 12, 2022.
Does council have any questions for Gene?
I got one. Gene, do you know, have you kind of put together the numbers, how much revenue this will generate for the beach?
It should generate at least $3,200 additional revenue based on what we've had for parties and rentals the past 2 years.
And that's yearly, right? Yearly, right?
Yes.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Gene?
Quick question for you, Gene. In looking at the price layout here, I guess I'm just a little bit confused. For example, the indoor birthday parties, you're showing a 10% increase. The outdoor birthday parties are only a 4% increase, and then it fluctuates from there. Is there any particular reason why there's not a standard increase percentage that you're going by? Is there some sort of additional, based on what we had been doing in the past, is there some sort of additional labor or indirect cost that's driving these variances?
It's mostly because of demand. The most popular thing we have in this list are the indoor birthday parties, and that's why we're going up 10%. Also because that's when the beach loses the most revenue during the fall and winter months. So we're trying to generate more revenue during the fall and winter months. The outdoor birthday parties, we don't have quite as many of those, not even half as much as the indoor parties.
Do you anticipate raising these rates will make you lose any business along the way?
I don't think we're going to lose any business at all because we've taken the incremental approach of raising the fees over the years. And we've noticed that instead of losing business for these type of events, our business has actually increased.
Do you have any knowledge as to why that would be occurring? I know that's probably an anecdotal answer.
The one thing that's really helped our indoor parties and rentals was getting the Whibbit inflatable. About 5 years ago, we got that through a grant from the Wapello County Foundation. And when we installed that, people started using it, our birthday party business really took off for the indoor parties.
Okay. And last question, and then I'll be still. For any similar type facilities across the state of Iowa, is there any sort of comparability for these rates?
Yeah, I get figures from the Iowa Park and Recreation Association every year regarding their fees and also their wages. And even with these increases, we're still low. And we're also low compared to other organizations in town that provide birthday parties.
Okay. Thank you.
Any other questions for Gene? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed resolution adopting revenue purpose statement regarding use of revenues from proposed electric franchise fees pursuant to Iowa Code Section 364.24F.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And I believe, Phil, you're going to do the presentation.
Yeah, so most of the presentation was just presented there. Pursuant to Iowa Code, Section 364.2, Sub 4, Sub F, municipalities may impose a franchise fee when adopted by ordinance. Part of that process is adopting a revenue purpose statement indicating how the revenue received from those funds would be used. And then there was an attached revenue purpose statement identifying the uses available to the city council going forward. And that was pretty much everything that is allowed for under the state code, with the exception of the first item, that property tax relief. All of the things that are still identified in there would essentially provide that property tax relief, just not having that one specifically stated. The rest of that would be in there to leave the flexibility for future budgets, future councils to determine where those funds should be spent. As I mentioned in the presentation, the dollars have to be segregated. Anything received and collected from these fees goes into a separate fund that is created and can only be used for the purposes identified within the revenue purpose statement. If anyone from the public wants to speak on this.
We have two different opportunities for people to speak on this tonight, either at the public hearing where you want to comment on the revenue purpose statement, or you can go ahead and speak at the next public hearing where we talk about imposing an actual franchise fee. So if you don't have any specific questions, comments, or concerns about the revenue purpose statement, I think I'll go ahead and let you folks speak when we get to the public hearing where it talks about actually imposing a franchise fee, if that's okay with everybody? Okay. Okay. Does council have any other questions for Phil about the revenue purpose statement?
So I just have a clarifying question. So again, so we're going to have 3 votes on, well, 4 votes, but the first 3 are on revenue purpose. So we're not actually voting on installing the franchise fees, correct?
Correct. This is a resolution to adopt a revenue purpose statement. That would
Should
be
franchise fees be adopted?
correct.
Any other questions for Phil?
So I kind of have a comment on the revenue purpose statement. So we've
Hey,
been,
Russ, can you pull your microphone closer?
yeah, sorry.
Thank you.
Sorry.
So
I,
so that's also a directional mic. Could you actually point it towards your face?
oh, sweet. Can you hear me now? Yes. All right, sweet. Don't sue me. That's my own statement. So I comment on the revenue statement. We kind of went over this in the open meeting, the public meeting that we had, work session. I've had a little bit of chance to review it all and everything, and I understand the purpose of the franchise fee, and obviously I have in front of me everything, but I just want to make sure that there's when we set this in place, are we like, is the council going to have like say where this money goes once we get the money, and we're not just going to go ahead and like we're not going to trust that the our staff is going to be saying, okay, well, we want to do this, we want to do this, we want to do this with the money.
Yeah, so anything that is spent, the council still has to weigh in on. If it's, in this case, we'd be looking at a budgetary amendment. So once we have identified if the franchise fees do get approved and what those revenues would be coming in, you'd have an amendment to accept the revenues, but then also to expend that. And most likely anytime there was anything, if we were looking at hiring back firefighters, for example, that would have to be a council decision to do that and approve that. A decision like that is going to have the consequences of every year there is expenses for salary, wage, benefits that would be impacted. It may be, as you see some of the things in here, construction or reconstruction, repair, capital projects, in other words, that could be a 1 year or over a couple years, depending on the price tag of an expense. That is something that could change year to year. The council could have fluctuation. 1 year might be for a road, the next year might be for a building, et cetera. But the council would have to weigh in on those decisions at that time.
Thank you.
So I do have something to say regarding purpose statements. So I feel like we're using a lot of trigger words today, like hiring back firefighters and roads. And those are topics and conversations that are very like perk people's ears up. And I understand that this money could go toward those areas. But we have a lot of area, like if we think about it, we know that we're having a pay, or we're having all our, I can't think of the name, Barb.
Gallagher.
Yes, the wages and benefits study being done. And we know that we come under right now without really knowing where we are. So a lot of this money we're thinking about probably will go to not hiring firefighters, more firefighters right now, not fixing roads right now. It's probably going to, if they were adopted, going to ensuring that, our employees are at a level. And again, I'm only one voice, but I'm just saying, like, that's what I imagine, at a level that they should be compared to other cities. So I struggle when we're talking about this right now because I feel like we're not being very fair to the people listening, that because we're using trigger words. And I think that when we use words and ideas like that, then we're putting out this concept that is where our money is going to go right now. And so I just want to clarify that we're not identifying that, correct?
So the reason for those words is if you look at the items that are in there, construction, reconstruction, really the only thing where I'd say that you could say a direct impact on employees is under public safety, which would be firefighters or police officers. Under D of this revenue purpose statement, one of the purposes would be public safety, including the equipping of fire, police, emergency services, sanitation, street, civil defense departments. So it's outside of that, there really isn't anything that just says we can use it for wages, we can use it for other things to that effect. Unless the council agrees to use these funds for things that are going to help lessen the burden on the general fund, those dollars aren't there within the general fund to pay for the wages or do those things. So this isn't just going to be, we're passing this so we can give pay increases.
Well, no, and I understand that. I guess I meant, but like, so if we're not looking to hire 3 I guess that's not So if we hire 3 firefighters, that doesn't, I mean, are we going to be able to maintain that consistently also? You know, how does that lessen the general fee or fund or other things like that too? I want to be real with people that if we're saying like, oh, we're looking to hire firefighters, then that's what, I just think we need to be open and honest about. We don't understand, if these were to be adopted today, we don't exactly know where they're going to go. But when we use words like hiring firefighters, we know that you showed a picture of people in here because we know that that's a hot topic. So I just want to be fair and clear to everyone that because those words and those ideas are being said, it does not mean that that money is going to them if we get it here and, you know, that money.
Certainly, yes. The council would have to determine where any dollars are going to be spent. The request is to have the revenue purpose statement be broad enough so that you have those options should anything come forward. The city applied for the SAFER grant. If we are lucky enough to receive that, 3 years from now, we're going to have to come up with funds to pay for those firefighters that we would earn from that grant, or have to cut them again. So there are some things where we're not looking at today. We have to necessarily hire 3 firefighters, but that has had a huge impact on the ability to respond and the health and safety of the department.
I'd like to make a comment. City Administrator Phil and I have had a couple different conversations the last 2 or 3 weeks about this, and I've been doing some thinking on it too. And I think where the problem is we as a city needs to dig into the general fund and find out what's going in and what's going out. I had shared with Phil little simple things like the next time a department needs a vehicle, instead of spending $30,000 on one, why don't we spend $20,000 on one? And you start doing that. It has nothing to do with any employees, anybody's benefits or anything. I'm still, we're kind of dancing around how the county's going to lose 160 to 180,000 a year on this. And I know some are going to say, but they haven't seen it before. I understand that. But in 20 years time, and I only went on the 160,000, they're going to lose $3.2 million. When Phil's report said that 1 out of every 4 cities is doing a franchise fees, that means 3 out of 4 cities are not. And I asked Phil, that's where our focus should be. We should get a hold of them cities and say, how are you doing this without a franchise fees? I have nothing against the city council voting on taking $117,000 out of a fund that we're trying to put money in for a group to come here and tell us what we already know. I just can't compute that. And we're going to we bought a train station that we can't afford to employ to fix up or anything. And even though that comes from a different fund, what we're doing is, and I understand the 20-year plan, I totally do. I think that'd be cool. 20 years, if all them goals in that booklet works out, that's perfect. And if people want to come back to me someday and say, I told you so, I'm totally cool with that. But right now we can't afford it. So if it's something we need, we do what we can to get it. If it's something we want, we need to put on the back burner. This is not the time the easy way out is do a franchise fee. And even though it's technically not called a tax, it is a tax. No disrespect to anybody. It is a tax. And we're trying to make all these financial decisions without a financial director or an assistant. We have no idea what's in that general fund, what's coming in and what's coming out. At least I don't, because we don't have a financial director to talk it over with. And here's what's the sad part is, you know why we can't find a financial director? Because somewhere along the line, it became a political position, and it should have never been. That's the only reason we want to hurry up and get rid of somebody, because we don't agree with them, or we have a hard time hiring somebody because it's a political position. That's all I have at this time.
Council have any other comments, questions for Phil? If not, I would entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre,
Yes.
Councilmember Hull,
Yes.
Councilmember Pope,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Resolution number 174, 2022, adopting revenue purpose statement regarding use of revenues from proposed electric fee, franchise fee pursuant to Iowa Code Section 364.2, Sub 4, Sub F. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 174, 2022.
Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre,
No.
Councilmember Hull,
Yes.
Councilmember Pope,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed ordinance amending Appendix D, electricity franchise with Interstate Power and Light Company for the purpose of imposing a franchise fee.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and Phil, I'll see what comments you want to make on this.
All right. Is already referenced the code that allows for the city to consider this. Attached was the ordinance with the intent to impose a 3% franchise fee upon the electric utility as part of a franchise agreement with Interstate Power and Light or Alliant. The fee would replace the current 1%, which is charged on the local option sales tax. That results in a 2% difference. Revenue received from this fee would be used to supplement the general fund as outlined in the revenue purpose statement, which was just previously adopted by the council.
Does council have any questions for Phil?
You open the public hearing.
If not, I'll go ahead and have the individuals come up one by one to talk about your feelings regarding the franchise fee. And we'll start with Keith Cavanis, and give your name, your address, and we are going to try and hold everybody's comments to 3 minutes.
Good evening. Keith Cavanis, 2851 Oak Meadow Drive, resident of Ottumwa for 80 years. Council members, mayor, you're barking at the wrong dog. Our citizens cannot afford an additional tax. We have 37%, the last time I checked, of retired people on Social Security or IPERS who live in our community. Some of those 37 people don't even have that. They scrap for what they get. I'm telling you, folks, this is the wrong act. If in March, the administrator felt that it was not a good time to ask for tax, then 4 months later, it is a good time. Wrong. Just dead wrong. I will tell you that most of the time that I'm familiar with, on cities and city councils, the people that present the budget to you give you the top side down. Tell you, well, the bottom 93% you can't touch, so you can just deal with the top 7%. Wrong again. You need to look at the budget from the bottom up and decide how much revenue you have and what you're going to spend it on. That's the way you build a budget. That's the way you run a city. I'm telling you that 3% franchise fee can go to 5% in 60 days. Just a matter of getting it passed today and raising it then. If it wasn't good in the beginning, it isn't good now. With all due respect to your administrator, I think he does a great job of bar graphs and filling in the holes without giving you any of the information where the whole information came from. I think that there are a series of things that need to be addressed throughout the city. One of them is TIF, tax increment financing. You can't just throw that around like free dollars. It's not. The lot that's being used over on beside Coles is an area TIF financing is supposed to be used for blighted areas to improve them when someone wants to do something with their money and you try to help them. Well, that lot over there, the city spent hundreds of thousands of dollars to raise that lot 8 feet because it was a flooded, blighted area. They also had to raise Wildwood Drive and put a culvert under it to avoid Kettle Creek from flooding and actually stopping traffic for extended periods of time. How we ever got to the point where we thought we could TIF that investment again and give the individual a $75,000 tax dollars to help him out, that's just wonderful. Excuse me, that's my tax dollars you just gave away. I don't think that works.
Keith, we're at past 3 minutes. Can you make a closing statement, please?
This is a public hearing, Your Honor, and I will try to address as quickly as I can, but I will not be told to stop. Thank you very much. So I will address the items that I think are important that this council needs to hear. I don't come here very often, and I don't very often have much to say, but I do have something to say tonight. So if you will address my address, if you will forgive me for my address, I would appreciate it.
Is the council willing to go ahead and allow Mr. Cavanis to keep speaking?
Anyone who will not allow a public hearing?
Go ahead.
Thank you. We're a city of 24,000 people. And as I mentioned earlier, at least 37% are on IPERS or Social Security. And there's no place that you can make a restitution for additional taxes. You're at the $8.10 max. You need to figure out how not to spend money. How to spend money is easy. How not to spend the dollars, except in the most important areas, so that you have revenue to cover them. If you went home and tried to build a budget top down, you'd be out of money before you got your next paycheck. You cannot run a business top down. You've got to run it bottom up. And I truly believe that this council would like to do the right thing and is interested in doing the right thing. But I think you are being misguided by the administrator and his thoughts how to raise additional revenue by taxing the people more. Thank you for your opportunity and my opportunity to address you. Mr. Mayor, thank you for allowing me to forward my information. And I hope you all make serious thoughts before you decide to approve an additional tax on the citizens of this city. Thank you.
Keith, before you sit down real quick, does
Sure.
the council have any questions for Mr. Cavanis? Since this is a public hearing, does council have any questions? Okay, thank you, Keith.
Thank you, Mayor.
Next is Katie Howard.
Good evening. Thank you. My name is Katie Howard. I live at 901 North Wapello in Ottumwa. I have only been a resident for 3 years, so I defer to Mr. Cavanis for his longevity.
Katie, can you speak into the mic? I'm sorry, I'm struggling to hear what they are on tonight. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. I'm hard of hearing myself, so I can appreciate that. I have 30 years of government experience in government service. I understand and feel your pain with trying to balance a budget while delivering public services. I'm one of the lucky ones. I did my service in California and in Arizona. I'm now retired in God's country and I love it here, okay? But I do know a little bit about budgets and revenue sources. The presentation by Mr. Rowe earlier, that PIP's goal is to improve the vibrancy of the region, and I urge you to think about the same. I think that this, I will call it a tax. Mr. Rath, I realize you say it is not one, but I suppose you could say inflation is not a tax as well. It doesn't matter. The fact is there are so many dollars in your pocket. I'm one of the fortunate ones, but there are many, many people in this city who are barely scraping by. And I mean barely scraping by. And so if you add a mere $4.10 to their electric bill or their utility bill each month, that's $150 a year, so forth and so on. The gas prices are going up. You heard about that from the supervisor earlier. I won't repeat it. If the county council improves these franchise fees, it's going to cost the county as well, which goes to the vibrancy of the region. And for the citizens at large, you're looking at having a revenue of 1.6 million, I believe. So even though it's only a pittance each month, the aggregate sum is pretty staggering to the citizens of this city. With inflation, skyrocketing gas prices, housing prices going up, people simply can't afford this increase. And as far as tax valuations, my partner and I came into this town 3 years ago. We bought 3 houses in Ottumwa in the city that were they were blighted. They were destined for, one was already bank owned. They were destined for foreclosure or for demolition. And we rehabbed those houses. We sold them each for, we lost money. We put more money into it than we should have, but we made houses that people are now living in, and they're doing well in those houses. And I just think that you need to think about the people that you're representing, and that includes those who can't come to a city council meeting. They're not comfortable coming to talk to you about this. So I would just urge you to think that when times are tough, governments, along with the people, need to tighten their belts. I worked for a county in 1984 after California passed its Prop 13, which capped property taxes. It was a disaster for the counties. I was the assistant county treasurer there. And I will tell you, we had a workforce of 1,000 people. We had to do a reduction in force that year of 200 people, 1/5 of our workforce. We thought we were going to come apart at the seams, but we didn't. We survived, we innovated, we did the hard work, and I'm asking you to do the same. Thank you for your time. Are there?
Thank you. Anybody have any questions for Ms. Howard?
Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else in the audience that would like to speak on franchise fees? If not, I would go ahead and entertain a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Yeah.
Council make comments after the citizens.
Go ahead.
Okay. So I wanted to wait for the citizens to speak before I spoke on this because, you know, I want to thank the 2 former council members for being here and spoke their minds. I've been mulling this over for quite a while. And I echo a lot of what the former council members have said. This Administrator Rath, we've talked about, we lowered the property taxes, but the problem is that we lowered the property taxes for property owners. We didn't lower the property taxes for renters. And that's my biggest issue is this does not just affect homeowners. This affects renters. Graf said it's going to cost $51.60 a year, $51.60 a year for a 3% franchise fee to a family of 4 or family of 5. You know, that's groceries for the week. That's gas in their car. That's, you know, maybe a family night out at the movies on Tuesday night when it's cheap. There are positives to this. It's going to be income. It's going to help our finance it's going to help our HR get more people in the door and replenish the 5 or 25% of our staff that's retiring in the next 5 years. Part of this is going to be utilized for housing and economic development, which is good for the city, which we need. But there's a lot of negatives to this. And I struggle with that because, you know, there are just so many negatives to this with the rising costs, you know, our low income citizens, you know, and on top of it, this probably won't go away. This, once we put this in, I doubt this will go away. So I struggle with it. So yeah, that's what I just want to say. So, and on top of that, I appreciate Brian Morgan saying that it doesn't, the county is not too harsh on this, but for the loss of their 160 to 180,000, but they put a lot of good out in the county for that 160 to 80,000, $180,000 a year. So I do appreciate the county supervisors struggle with that. So thank you.
Does any of the council have any other questions, comments they want to make?
Well, I guess now's just as good a time as any. This is a delicate issue. We as a community are at a precipice, really. We are in a position where taxable valuation, without new housing builds in the community, is going to keep falling. That's pretty much a fact. That most of the housing inventory in this community was built before 1979. So we're going to continue to see declined housing valuation, which is going to continue to decline our general fund and our property tax revenue that we get into the door. With that, we also, and I'm going to speak as an accountant here for just a second. With that, we will see increased expenses over the course of the next few years. Those are expenses that the city of Ottumwa just can't control. The price to Supervisor Morgan's point, we're going to see fuel costs go up. The city of Ottumwa can't control that. We're going to see health insurance costs rise. The city of Ottumwa can't control that, especially with five union groups here in the community that we're under contract with. And if we tried to adjust to those, we probably wouldn't have those union workers at the end of this next contract term. We have the prices of automobiles going up. I appreciate Councilperson McIntyre when he said buy cheaper vehicles. The problem with that is usually we know how people like to take advantage of big government, and usually when you purchase used vehicles, they end up costing more than what a new vehicle would have cost in the long term. So buying used from a governmental standpoint, and I think anybody that's worked in government that's in here tonight can attest to that. You don't buy used if at all possible, because it doesn't fare out well in the end. With that being said, back to the salaries just a second. Even with not adding a single staff person, we have, and not increasing any salaries, based on a competitive and comparable wage study, we are looking at increased salaries over the next 2 to 5 years. Again, we have 5 labor unions that will come to the table and demand increased wages. And I've been part of 2 different union negotiations at this point. And I hope that none of the people sitting up here have to go through what the last council had to go through when we went through a budget and had to make the decisions that we made, because it was painful. It was painful for the city. It was painful for all the council people that sat up here to say the one area where we could control, we had to make cuts. And you can use the spitball terms of public safety or fire department or police department, whatever. We can talk about those terms all we want, but I sat up here when that wasn't a term. That was people sitting in the audience that we had to quote unquote lay off. That was next to impossible to make that decision, knowing that the city did not have the money to cover those positions. The public safety, again, I'm not using this as a quote trigger word. This is very real. Public safety was put at risk because we lost 6 firefighters. We lost 3 police officers that night, effectively. That isn't trigger. That's real people in the audience. So I say all of that. I'm not trying to talk anybody into this. I'm not trying to talk anybody out of it. I just want to paint a full picture of what not doing this does, and for the public, for the public's perspective of this, because man, I sure appreciate everything that the two former council people said, and I appreciate the other person who has governmental experience. I appreciate that. You know, in my former life, I dealt with people that were less fortunate every day of the week. I see it. I know exactly what it is. I grew up in that environment myself. I'm still very intimately attached to what that feels like. Understanding we do have a limited budget, and I'm going to poke a little bit of fun at Councilperson McIntyre here for just a second, so don't take any offense.
Never.
City budgets aren't something that we can Dave Ramsey out of. That's not something that we can do. It's just not possible. You know, if we don't do this tonight, that's fine, because I would respect that decision. If we do it tonight, I would respect that decision. The public needs to understand. The public needs to understand something. We are in a time of declining valuation of property. We are handcuffed by the state of Iowa in what we can levy in taxes. Those are things that we can't control. Those are two things completely out of our control. Again, rising values are something that we can't control. We have contracts with 5 unions. We can't control that. Sure, we can tell the police department, we can tell the fire department, we can tell the parks department, we can tell all of those people when their contract comes up, we're gonna suspend health insurance. We're gonna reduce health insurance. We're gonna make you pay more for health insurance. We're gonna cut all of your pay increases out. We can do all of that. I don't suspect it would be popular, and I suspect that there would be a mass exodus in the community. And I'm going to stress, in a community that we already hear consistently that we don't do enough for public safety, because we do have substance abuse issues in this community. We do have mental health issues in this community. We have public safety issues in the community, part of which is because we don't have enough people on our planning and zoning and code ordinance department to effectively go out and do inspections on properties. So all of these things combined, the public needs to understand that if we don't find a way to increase revenue, then we'll probably get by, but we're going to get by with a lot less than what we have now. We're not going to have the same level of community service that everybody deserves and demands. It's just not going to be there, because costs will rise. Unfortunately, we've seen costs rise 9.1% year over year. And that's not something that we can control locally. That's not something we as a state can control. That's something that's at the national level. So whatever we decide to do, if we decide to table this, which again, I agree with Supervisor Morgan, that is an option. You know, voting this up, voting this down aren't the only two options. This can be suspended to a later date. If we decide to vote it up, there are consequences, but everybody needs to understand that if we vote it down, there are consequences. There are very real consequences. And I absolutely agree. Is now the right time? No, it really isn't the right time. But that being said, anybody can get on social media at any given day of the week and hear about how we have all the garbage houses in Ottumwa, and the city of Ottumwa won't do anything about it. How we have police getting called and nobody showing up because the police are actually at 5 other things taking care of it, because we don't have the proper number of police officers. We have people saying that the firefighters are taxed to the point that they're getting injured on the job, they're overstressed, and we're sending them out on too many calls, partially because we have too many structures that need to be torn down. And at the same time, we have people saying that that the city's just taken over, basically claiming eminent domain on properties because we don't want them there. I'll be still on this and just say there are consequences both ways, and you can't have your cake and eat it too. You can't say we're going to not do this in a time when property valuations are going down, meaning revenue is going down, not implement this franchise fee, and then complain about the service level that you're receiving now, 1 year, 2 years from now. But understanding that there are people that are going to be negatively affected by this. So with that, I'll be quiet.
I just like to say I am part of that 37%. Economically, we are stressed across the board. That's everybody and everywhere. And so with saying that, I couldn't move forward with this tonight. We could table this for another date, but right now I can't move forward with it. But I appreciate y'all standing, and I am that one that do kind of struggle from month to month to pay those bills, and because I am on a fixed income. But we will, one way or the other, somewhere down the line, something's going to have to change. And we want the citizens of this community to back us, because we're going to need your assistance too. We're going to need to move forward with this, if not today, someday. With that being said, I appreciate y'all standing up and sharing with us tonight. Thank you.
So I guess to both Councilperson Rowe and Councilperson Popes, I guess I would make a motion tonight to table this. I think to Councilperson McIntyre's point, we do not have a finance director at this point. And yes, I understand Phil is sitting in that role right now too. Phil has a lot going on also, but I would make a motion to table it. And I don't know, 3, 4, 5, 6 months. And discuss it maybe again when we are discussing our budget for the next year. As I went to the grocery store. I haven't been in a month, just because I haven't been in Ottumwa in a month, but I went to the grocery store. $4.30 is a gallon of milk, if you drink skim, exactly. I'm lucky, I drink skim, but that's a gallon of milk, and to some people, that's all they have. And I think with everything rising, I think we need to, like Councilperson Pope and Rose said, this is something we have to seriously consider. And I would implore everyone in the audience, especially the people that got up today, to understand that when you see people complaining about our roads or our streets or the lack of service that they're getting, to make sure that you're making those comments to the people too, because I believe you don't get to come up here and say, vote against this, but then get to go out and complain about everything else. So I'm holding everyone accountable to that also. But this is something that we do have to bring back to the table and seriously consider. I think today we need to table that. So I do motion to table.
Second that motion.
Don't we have to come out of the public hearing before we take a vote?
I apologize. I'm sorry I said it too early.
Sorry, we're all kind of new up here.
Is there a motion to close the public hearing?
Well, just real quick, there were a couple of comments. I just want to clarify and understand where this is headed in a minute. Just a couple of things that were stated. It was mentioned that March of this year that I thought it was a bad idea. It was actually March of 2 years ago, March of 2020. So 2 years ago, and we've lowered our taxes about $1.23 in that time frame. That was the reason why this, not because of the inflationary costs. Those are hitting everyone regardless, including city and city services. I know there's some communities that are deciding if they can send patrol officers out to hit the streets or not because of the fuel prices. So those are realities that are across the country. The 5%, if this is put in place at some point, in order to increase at any point in the future, we have to do the same process. So there still has to be a change in the ordinance. There still has to be assuming that we follow the same process, 3 readings, et cetera. So it wouldn't just be 30 days or 60 days later, it's going to be changed. We would have to have the public hearing, we'd have to have an ordinance change and everything else to that degree. That, on the other side, the length of time, it's tied to the franchise agreement. Those are typically 25 years in length. The electric one, if it was revised, there's an ordinance already in place or an agreement already in place from 2016. So it would be the balance of that time. But that said, the city cannot levy more in taxes than what it needs, more in revenue than what it needs to pay for services. So whether the franchise fee is looked at on an annual basis and reduced, or the tax levy is reduced because of revenue coming in from the franchise fees, there's still a look every year when the budget comes up to decide what is needed so that the citizens and businesses are not being overtaxed for services that they're provided. And then finally, just kind of as was mentioned, the services, you're talking about the personnel costs, the non-personnel costs, and any kind of infrastructure or capital that goes into that. If we're talking about not having enough revenue, one way of looking at that budget is you have so much revenue, you can provide whatever level of services with that. Decisions had been made in the past. We will have to continue to make those tough decisions. There could be a reduction in service levels, whether that results in staffing decreases or not. We pretty much stripped down the staffing as much as feasible to provide the level of services that are currently being provided. The other side of it, you're talking TIF, you're talking the depot building, other things like that. We're looking at long-term sustainability of the city. How can we leverage dollars today for the future? How can we make sure that those values are increasing over time? Those are some of the decisions that were made in those things, that you can take the property that was purchased at the depot and that area there and all of a sudden add $10 million or $20 million of value that now translates into the tax levy for the city, for the county, for the school district. That all benefits our community as a whole. That's what that is looking at. That's one of the pieces that franchise fees does give us the ability to do, to rather than saying we're going to rebate somebody's taxes, you could offer some incentives on this other side that now you're getting that tax value right away and still getting that people to come and build here in the community. Those are some of the things that we're looking at.
I guess I have a point of clarification though. So if let's say we, in the future, or if we table this tonight, we do franchise fees at 3% and we add staffing levels, or we rate, we add personal safety or whatever, we take over, if we get the SAFER grant, we take over those 3 positions. That money, that 3% is pretty much taken up. So then being able to add other things with the franchise money, we would not be able to do that, correct?
So if you're talking about staffing, adding staff or doing anything like that, those dollars are now taken for that year, for the next year, for the year after that.
Mm-hmm.
If you're talking about a fraction of the $1.6 million that's available, and you take, say, $500,000 and invest it into economic development programs, housing, childcare, whatever else it might be that's related to economic development, that's money that is there for that 1 year, that one purpose, or however long that program is there, but can add value. If you're talking about facade improvements, you're talking about upstairs apartment rental or build outs, whatever it might be that adds value back to the tax base, that's an investment in that. And that's money that's going to grow and then generate new taxes, new revenue beyond what just that franchise fee. So that's an investment into what we're talking about, or what I'm talking about.
Any other comments before we close the public hearing? Okay, there's been a motion made and seconded to close the public hearing, and Chris will go ahead and take the roll.
I didn't have anybody second it.
Oh, I thought we did.
I'll second it.
I'll second it.
Councilmember Galloway,
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre,
Yes.
Councilmember Hull,
Yes.
Councilmember Pope,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Do you want me to go ahead and read this, even though we're going to, does someone want to make a statement to table it?
I would move to table item C, or ordinance number 3202-2022.
I will
A
second
second.
that.
Point of
Councilmember,
clarification, on a item that's tabled, is there a specified date that it has to come back to the table? Or is that, or can that be considered indefinite?
Oh,
If it's tabled, I believe that it can be brought up at any point in the future. If it's postponed, it's done to a certain date and time in the future.
Okay, just wanted to make sure.
Chris will go ahead and take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway,
yes.
Councilmember McIntyre,
Yes.
Councilmember Hull,
Yes.
Councilmember Pope,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Just so we're clear on what I'm voting for. Am I voting for the table or the amendment of the motion?
We're
Tabling
tabling
it.
Okay.
ordinance number 3202,
Just making
2022.
sure, yes.
So,
So we do the next two or not? Do we go ahead and still do 3 and 4? Okay.
Yeah, they're different items.
this is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed resolution adopting revenue purpose statement regarding use of revenues from the proposed gas franchise fees pursuant to Iowa Code Section 364.2, Sub 4, Sub F.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. And Phil, do you have any other comments you want to make?
Similar to the last resolution for the revenue purpose statement, it's allowed for under state law. And again, this is a broad use of the revenue purpose statement, similar to what was adopted previously under Resolution 174-2022.
Does council have any questions for Phil?
Can I just make a motion to table anything that has to do with the franchise fees? Instead of doing all this individually?
Since they're on the agenda, I think we still have to deal with each one of them.
Okay, I was just asking. Thank you.
If there's not any other comments, I go ahead and ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second,
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway,
yes.
Councilmember McIntyre,
Yes.
Councilmember Hull,
Yes.
Councilmember Pope,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Resolution number 176, 2022, adopting revenue purpose statement regarding use of revenues from proposed gas franchise fee pursuant to Iowa Code Section 364.2, Sub 4, Sub F. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 176, 2022.
Do we have a motion to approve the recommendation?
Motion that we table this as well.
Second.
Honorable Mayor, I just want to make it real quick before you vote on tabling it, because you had adopted the prior resolution, and in case this does come up, as since you're tabling it and not voting it down, I would recommend that you may want to consider adopting this resolution as you did the other one, so that if it does come up, it doesn't get lost in the shuffle and having to deal with the resolution and the ordinance, and it'd just be a recommendation I would make.
So then if it were to come up in the future, or let's be honest, when it comes back up in the future, we would just be voting on the ordinance for franchise fees and not the resolution, correct?
Correct.
You wouldn't have to re-vote on the revenue statement.
Or have it missed in the shuffle of other things. And
So do you guys want to remove it from the table? Do you want to rescind that motion or leave it on the
I'd
table?
like to take a vote on it.
Okay, so we're motioning to table item resolution number 176, 2022, adopting revenue purpose statement regarding use of revenues from proposed gas franchise fee pursuant to Iowa Code Section 364.2, Sub 4, Sub F. Is that correct?
Correct.
Just a point of clarification. So at this point, if we were, I apologize to the people in the audience. We're still learning. But at this point, the first revenue statement would not come back to the agenda, correct?
Correct. It's been adopted.
Okay, so then we would just be voting on the franchise fees. Okay. And so this one, if we table it, then we would be reviewing this again, which is similar to the one we've already approved, correct?
Correct. And if there isn't any issue with the items within the
Yeah.
revenue purpose statement, then that's why I'm recommending that you would just
Okay.
adopt this.
Well, then okay. So you're taking a vote now, sorry.
Chris will go ahead and take the roll.
So, hold on.
Yeah,
We're voting to table this, correct?
The vote
Correct.
is to the
Okay.
motion on the floor.
So I'm just going to go ahead and make a comment, and I might make some people angry. It's okay. This makes no sense. We voted for one revenue purpose statement, but we're going to table the other revenue purpose statement. I'm sorry, this council needs to do a better job of making sure that we're consistent. I take this back to the bonding and the CIP that we went through earlier this year, and then we came back and various council people voted no on various items that they had previously voted not once, not twice, but 3 times in favor of for the CIP funding. At some point, there's got to be some consistency with the city council. And make your decision and stick with it. Let's not flip flop, especially on the same night. This is kind of embarrassing, actually. So if we're going to vote to table it, that's fine. But there needs to be some consistency moving forward, and make a decision and stick with it.
Agreed.
Okay, so since I'm the one that voted to table it, I'll tell you the logic behind this. I wasn't actually really happy with my yes vote in the first place. I did it because I thought we could
It's
go
not
ahead.
helping your cause any, man.
Yeah, I'm sorry, but I was on the fence about the first one. I'm still on the fence about this one. So I think I motion to table it because I want more time to think about it.
So there has been a motion and a second to table. So Chris will go ahead and take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway,
No.
Councilmember McIntyre,
Yes.
Councilmember Hull,
Yes.
Councilmember Pope,
No.
Councilmember Rowe.
No.
I guess to that point, Councilman Rowe made, I know we had a work session a few weeks back, and this was a topic of contention, the main point of that work session. And I thought one of the things that we came out of there with was a discussion about moving forward in this direction, and pulled back the rate to that 3% instead of the projected 5%. And so I guess that leaves me a little bit of a loss as well on direction that the council wants to go in doing these things. The economy hasn't changed any more to the negative in the last couple of weeks. It hasn't changed to the positive, but we were still in the same point that we were then. So I guess you table it. That's the way that this goes. I just need some direction as to what you want to do then. What is the alternative that we're looking at? How are we raising the revenue to be able to keep services at the levels that we have?
So I guess, Phil, I made the motion to table, and I'll just let you know, in the last week, since we've had that meeting, while the economy may not have changed much, I will tell you that I have heard and seen the direct impact of inflation on people in Ottumwa. And I mean, as we all know, I work with, I am in social work, and so I do see that people right above the poverty level that aren't able to get services like IHEAP that help with the, wow, I'm struggling tonight, that help with the utilities and stuff in the winter, and or aren't able to get benefits like SNAP benefits and that kind of stuff too. So in a week, I have seen the even further now the direct impact, and that's why I didn't vote no, but that's why I asked to table it, because maybe and hopefully in 6 months when we're talking about the budget, we can talk about this again and it will make more sense, because hopefully by then, I mean, yes, 6 months doesn't seem like that, but I would truly hope that we're seeing some relief for our people and for the city and that kind of stuff too. So.
So now we need to vote on the resolution itself. So resolution number 176, 2022, adopting revenue purpose statement regarding use of revenues from proposed gas franchise fee pursuant to Iowa Code Section 364.2 sub 4 sub F. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 176, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
No.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
4-1. This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed ordinance repealing ordinance number 2888-2000 and granting to Mid-American Energy Company, its successors, and assigns the right and non-exclusive franchise to acquire, construct, erect, maintain, and operate in the city of Ottumwa, Iowa, a natural gas system, and to furnish and sell natural gas to the city and its inhabitants, and authorizing the city to collect franchise fees for a period of 25 years.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing. Phil, do you have any more comments?
No, this is the same as the last one, except it's with the gas, and this would be for the full 25 years because it would be granting that, not an amendment to a current one.
Does council have any questions for Phil?
I just have one thing, and I know that this is getting long, but I'm not going to apologize for asking questions. So, Mike, when this does come back up too, I know that this says for a period of 25 years, and that's how long we would review, or it would be put in place. But in the recommendation next time, can we have like it be reviewed on an annual basis? And I know we have to have this period of 25 years, but something to that too, that we will be reviewing more regularly. We're not just going to wait till 25 years to be looking at the franchise fees. Is that possible? Is that where that would be put?
Well, as part of the budget process, you're going to be reviewing the revenues that come in and what that means, what the impact is. So you're going to be reviewing it on an annual basis, regardless of anything that you state in there.
And I understand that too, but I think that having it reviewed outside of that process, like a discussion for the, if they were approved in the future, a discussion for our citizens to understand how that's being used directly. So because when we put it with all the other budget stuff too, it could get lost, and I would like maybe a more direct conversation about those in the future too.
Any other comments, questions for Phil? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes. to close.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3203, 2022, an ordinance repealing ordinance number 2888-2000 and granting to Mid-American Energy Company, its successors, and assigns the right and non-exclusive franchise to acquire, construct, erect, maintain, and operate in the city of Ottumwa, Iowa, a natural gas system, and to furnish and sell natural gas to the city and its inhabitants, and authorizing the city to collect franchise fees for a period of 25 years. Recommendation passed the first consideration of ordinance number 3203, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Wait, I would like, okay, so we're going to vote on it. I would like to table this.
Okay, then make a counter motion.
Okay. So how do I do that?
Make a counter motion.
So I would move to table this.
Second.
You still have to put on this though. My understanding was since there was a recommendation, you either had to vote it up or vote it down. And then you could make a motion to table it after that. Is that not correct?
Christine, are you on the line?
I know in the past, we have made counter motions to, and
Okay, so we're going to vote on the first consideration of ordinance number 3203-2022 first. Okay, is everybody clear on that?
I'm more confused now than I was when I got
So I guess if we vote it up or down, then if we vote it up or down, is there a reason to, I mean, do we need to move to table it then? I guess I'm yeah, then it's gone, correct?
and then it would have to be reintroduced at a later point with the other one.
Okay. Okay.
Is that correct?
Yes.
That's the way I would read it.
Okay, so is everybody
Yeah.
clear
We're
now?
voting on the original.
The first consideration of the ordinance, yes.
So we voting to table it?
No, we're not voting that. We're voting on actually installing a franchise fee.
On the gas.
Gas, thank you.
Let's go.
Ready?
Mhm.
Okay. Councilmember Galloway?
No.
Councilmember McIntyre?
No.
Councilmember Hull?
No.
Councilmember Pope?
No.
Councilmember Rowe?
No.
So now are you making a
I
motion?
guess I would remove my motion because there's no point to it. We voted it down.
Honorable Mayor, may I request a short recess? We're at about 2 hours here and we still have a page or so to go.
Yeah.
How long would you like to take? 10 minutes? 5
10
minutes?
Say at 7:40?
Yes.
Okay. So we'll take a short recess and reconvene at 7:40 then.
Oh, yeah.
That's what they should have done.
Where are we going to now? Mustard Lake?
Yeah, we just must have like.
Texted my friend group and said to see if they could drop some.
See, your comment on staying consistent, that's what they should have done in the second one instead of tabling it. They should have just voted it down. Because we're not even consistent with what we've done tonight.
Well, that's on Mark. That was his inconsistency.
Get Kennedy in 20 minutes. I'm calling people right now.
We didn't do this correctly. We should have, to be consistent, you just should have, since it was on there to vote on, you should have just voted it down. Because we did that one, we did two different than we did four.
Which one?
We did
Well, no, I
number
know,
two,
but I made a motion before she brought it up. I motioned to table it, so that's why that was tabled.
But then she also voted
But then
on
Mark-
that too.
No, we didn't vote on that one. We voted to table.
The first one.
Yeah,
We
because I
voted to
voted
table
before
first.
anyone,
But yeah. but we
before
didn't-
anyone approved
we
that, I
didn't
voted to
But
table.
we didn't table the second one,
Yeah.
so. we were
But Chris
inconsistent on
says when it's on the agenda, you're supposed to vote on it. So where you should have just probably,
we tabled other ones.
we probably just should have voted it down. Because
Honestly,
you did one way and you did the other one a different way.
No.
is what she said.
Just a sec, I'm gonna go call my kid. Try to figure out how to get her.
Hey, if you need to. That door is closed.
Because he thought at the work session he had agreed with everybody. I couldn't go with the 3%.
See, here's the thing. There's a reason that motion for the table in a second.
No, I know. I'm just saying. That was the purpose of the work session, though, was where was the council coming from? Because if that had been clearly communicated at the work session, this would have even been brought up.
Because
Yeah.
those three were gonna vote yes on it no matter what.
But I think they listened to the public comment and they came. Which is okay. That's okay. You know, that's why you have public hearings.
Yeah. That's what we do.
So, I don't know.
All the mics still on? Yeah. Hey, guys, mics are still on, so.
I wouldn't say anything standing here that I wouldn't say publicly.
Yeah.
Except for I might not call Doug fake names in public.
Step up and leave attention.
I don't know, my detentions were never like this. My detentions
I've
are
only
okay.
had detention a couple different times, really. Of course, I grew up in the era of the teacher.
Yeah.
Did I what?
I didn't grow up with sister nuns that.
Yeah, I did. Joe Ferguson, no, he had him out.
Yeah. Time to shoot.
This was handled a different way. Should have been consistent. Yeah, really, it's right. So it just should have voted it up or down. Yeah, it's, you never know. It's pretty close to the rest of the state. After you brought that up, because they were kind of doing it. I heard. All four all-star teams in Ottumwa and made it to state. Really cool. Kind of late now.
I didn't schedule anyone to pick Kennedy up from play practice because I was like, oh,
Yeah.
for a chance at the I just thought.
No, that's good. I'll go ahead and make that announcement.
All right. I'm not that far yet.
I have 2 chicken nuggets.
You might have to. I don't have to.
Yeah, right.
Okay, we're past 7:40, so we're going to reconvene the council meeting, and thank you, everybody, for being flexible and letting us have a few minutes for people to do some bathroom breaks and catch their breath. So we'll go ahead and continue with our agenda.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the consideration of a 5-year renewal of lease agreement between the City of Ottumwa and Musco Sports Lighting LLC.
I'll go ahead and open this public hearing, and Phil, I believe you're going to cover this.
Yeah, so just for everyone's information, the City of Ottumwa had renewed an agreement with Musco Sport Lighting LLC around March 2nd of 2021. They lease out the south half of Building 23 out at the airport. Since that time, the city has taken over fixed base operator services, which includes hangar rental and fueling. Musco has agreed to replace the current extension with a new 5-year agreement to reflect changes in airport personnel and service provision. So the new agreement would be effective July 1 of this year through June 30th of 2027. And that reflects pulls out fueling, so it is done on the same consistent basis as everyone else that fuels at the airport, and changes the rate structure, the rental rate structure, so at the end of the term, they'd be paying a consistent rate with everyone else.
Does anyone have comments for Phil?
The only thing I would say is I think that this is a good move in the right direction. I think that especially with making the changes that we've made in the airport over the last couple of years, this is the next logical step to making sure that we have a sustainable airport function.
Council have any other comments, questions? Since this is a public hearing, does anybody in the audience have any questions on this that they want to raise at this point? If not, do we have a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 189, 2022, approving the authorization and execution of a 5-year renewal of lease agreement between the City of Ottumwa and Musco Sports Lighting LLC. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 189, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing on the proposed ordinance number 3200, 2022, adopting the new state electrical code by amending Chapter 13 of the City of Ottumwa Municipal Code.
I'll go ahead and open the public hearing, and I believe, Zach, you're going to take this.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. The State Fire Marshal's Office and the Electrical Examining Board had contacted my office and requested that Ottumwa enforce the Iowa Electrical Code. Our ordinance currently references, I believe, the 2011 National Electric Code. The Iowa Electric Code is the 2022 National Electric Code with certain amendments. And it's the position of their office that we should be enforcing at minimum their standard, and we can't enforce anything less than that. A lot of the things that would already be changes here are things that we were doing already after that conversation with them, requiring exterior emergency disconnects being one of the key ones for any new electrical service on a single family or two family home. So this ordinance would do what we do with our plumbing code, which is actually adopt language to just say that we always adopt the Iowa electrical code. If it changes, then ours kind of automatically changes. That's what we do with the plumbing code as well, to stay current and to kind of respect the fact that the state has given us the instruction that they want us to always follow their code.
Does council have any questions for Zach? Anyone in the audience have anything they'd like to say or ask? If not, is there a motion to close the public hearing?
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3200, 2022, adopting the new state electrical code by amending Chapter 13 of the City of Ottumwa Municipal Code. Recommendation passed the first consideration of ordinance number 3200, 2022.
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
This is the time, place, and date set for a public hearing regarding the proposed vacation of public right-of-way in the portion of the alleyway running northwest-southeast from East McPherson Avenue to Phillips Street between West 2nd Street and 3rd Street West in the city of Ottumwa.
I'm going to go ahead and open the public hearing, and I believe, Zach, you're going to present on this as well.
Yes, thank you, Mayor. Thank you, Council. This ordinance vacates a portion of the alley from West 2nd Street, or the alley that's between West 2nd Street and West 3rd Street, between Phillips Street and East McPherson Avenue. The vacation would be would support Elliott Oil's fuel station project that's in that location. The required retaining wall kind of goes further back and would have footings that would be underneath where the alley is in order to support it. The vacation would be subject to utility easements and also access easement to allow adjacent property owners to have their own ability to access the back of their yard on the occasions where they need to do that. There would be a purchase agreement for this, which would be considered at a later date by the council. It looks like the second meeting in August is when that's going to be prepared for consideration by a resolution. And the Planning and Zoning Commission did recommend this vacation at the June 27th, 2022 meeting.
And is part of the reason they want to vacate part of the alley is so that they can build their retaining wall for their new gas station?
Correct.
Council have any questions for Zach regarding this public hearing?
Have you heard any complaints about this or?
We've been in touch with the adjoining property owners even before this, as long as the sort of easements are there. We've also talked with the utilities. Larry's folks have talked with the utilities and the property owners mostly. And that's all works.
Pretty positive. Yeah.
Yeah.
Figure because it's going to benefit that area quite a bit once they get that gas station built and everything.
Does anyone in the audience have any comment or question on this topic? If not, I'll ask for a motion to close the public hearing.
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3205, 2022, vacation of a public right-of-way in the portion of the alleyway running northwest-southeast from East McPherson Avenue to Phillips Street between West 2nd Street and 3rd Street West in the city of Ottumwa. Recommendation passed the first consideration of ordinance number 3205, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 190, 2022, approving and authorizing execution of an assignment and assumption of lease agreement with George Allen Construction Company from Wapello County Historical Society, approving and authorizing execution of an assignment and assumption of lease agreement with National Railroad Passenger Corporation from Wapello County Historical Society, and approving and authorizing execution of a storage lease agreement between the City of Ottumwa and Wapello County Historical Society. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 190, 2022.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
Phil, I believe you're going to give a brief update on this.
Yeah, so at the last meeting, City Council approved acquisition of depot and clubhouse properties. Previous owner, Iowa Heartland History Connection, also known as Wapello County Historical Society, had entered into a couple leases which would benefit the city in the transition of ownership. Those were the two transition or assignment of leases. Additionally, the connection has requested a storage lease to allow them time to move exhibits and other possessions to their new location. And that is the one that would be just between us and the Iowa Heartland History Connection.
So it'll be a time-limited lease agreement, correct?
Yeah, I believe it was a year or less if they were to get everything moved over sooner.
Council have any questions for Phil? If not, Chris will go ahead and take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 191, 2022, approving and authorizing the execution of a real estate gift agreement with Bridgeview Center, Inc. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 191, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
I think Phil's going to give a brief update on
Got
this.
this one as well. Along with the construction of the Cobblestone Hotel near the Bridgeview Center, city planned to improve the allotted parking. One area for this improved access is the gravel lot south of the current parking lot. This area is currently owned by BBC Inc., who is offering to gift the property to the city for the creation of this improved parking area.
Council have any questions for Phil on this topic? If not, Chris will go ahead and take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 192, 2022, resolution adopting policy number 74, background check policy. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 192, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Barb, I believe you're going to present on this.
Yes, sir. Thank you. So this policy just puts into written word essentially the practice that we have been doing for the last year. And then the last 2 pages are the forms that we would use if we need to take adverse action on a background check.
Even though you're not really changing the process, I really appreciate the fact that you want to get it in a written form so it's there for everybody to see.
Yes.
I think that was a great idea.
We want to make sure that we're standard, consistent, and that if I win the lottery and leave tomorrow, Katie can, and anybody else can come in and continue that same process.
You better be taking us with you.
No, sorry.
I'm going.
Council have any questions for Barb?
Nobody come with me.
If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Resolution number 193, 2022, resolution adopting policy number 73 related to process and procedures for requesting honorary street names. Recommendation: pass and adopt resolution number 193, 2022.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
So moved.
Second.
I believe, Phil, you're going to cover this.
I am. On May 24th, City Council passed Resolution 139-2022, which designated a section of 4th Street with the honorary street name recognizing Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. Along with this designation, the resolution directed staff to establish a process for consideration of any future requests. This resolution addressed that process and procedure. And the application will be following the form itself.
Council have any questions for Phil?
How soon would the application be available?
I can have that right tomorrow. It's just needs to be finalized and to form.
Okay. Thank you.
I read over that and I didn't see where, we had discussed it a little bit with that. And I said that we need to be careful because something like this can get out of control in a hurry. So
Mhm.
I like the idea that it's 70 years old or older, if I read that correctly, or deceased.
5 years.
But I mean, have it for 5 years, but I thought an applicant or whoever's they're presenting to has to be 70 years old or older.
Oh, yes. Yeah. So either the person would have to either be deceased or age 70 or older. Yes.
To qualify to get their name.
Yep.
Okay, I thought I read that right. I don't know what you guys are thinking, but I would, because it don't say how many times we'll do this in a year.
Doug, can you talk into your microphone? I'm so sorry.
I don't,
Yeah.
it didn't say how many times. No, I mean for any different street or whatever. How many?
So part of it is that you have to have the authorization or a council member to sign on to it. And it says in here that each council member can have one per year. So I think it's
Okay.
General Guidelines B3.
I didn't read that.
Yeah,
then.
no,
Okay.
that's fine. Yes, so honorary street name designations shall reflect recognition of honorees on a case-by-case basis, solely as determined by city council by majority vote and approved resolution. Only one honorary sign is allowed. I'm sorry, that wasn't the spot. But it does state in here that you are required to have a city council sign off on it, and they could have one per year. So that would mean up
No
to
more
5
than
per
5,
year.
right? Okay.
Mhm.
What do you guys think about the, how many blocks it should or should not cover?
I mean, I think that would be up to the council member making the decision. When a person comes to you as a council member, that's the conversation you need to have with that person and kind of fill them out for what they want and what you think. And then that's something that you would present with your recommendation when you bring it to council.
Should we though have the same for everybody? 'Cause if
I
not-
completely understand Councilperson McIntyre's point, because if, like I say, it should be 5 blocks and Sandra says, well, 1 block, I mean, how is that fair if we're looking to be fair to everyone?
Right, I think we just decide how many.
Yeah, so part of the discretion there, it said not to exceed 6 city blocks in length, excuse me, and no more than 2 signs per block. So it would be 7 signs total that you could have. And the applicant is responsible for paying the cost, maintenance of those signs. So that may limit somebody if they have 2 signs or 5 signs, or, but in no case more than 6 city blocks. Part of that review process will also be determined if they wanted 6 blocks and 2 of them were not suitable for the program, they may have to be limited down to 4 just by the nature of that. So staff will review that and see if it's an area that would be feasible for the signage or not, or if there's other issues that could be a concern. And then the council would have to weigh in on that and decide how to proceed.
I think that's appropriate. And I just want to clarify too, that this, so once this is passed, if it were to be passed today, the streets that are already designated would have to reapply in 5 years.
That would be the intent. I'll verify with the attorney if there's anything legally that would grandfather existing honorary streets in. If not, the intent would be to say they're starting a 5-year process from this point forward, or at the time they'd have to be replaced because of wear, tear, or whatever.
Okay, thank you.
And it was C3 was the item. Application shall receive the endorsement of a city council member. Each city council member may endorse 1 application per calendar year.
Okay, appreciate it.
And even though there's a 5-year time limit, the way I understood it is that somebody could reapply again for another 5-year term.
Correct.
Any other questions for Phil?
So since our attorney's on, could we ask now just that clarifying question so that we're all on the same page about, is that, okay. So we could ask our attorney now?
Yeah, if she has an answer ready, she may
Okay.
need to research that. Christine, I know there's a delay. The question was, we have a couple of streets that already have honorary street name designations. If we were to approve this policy and procedure, would existing ones fall under it, under the time constraints and other future requirements?
I would say that any signs that have previously been posted would now be subject to the policy.
So going forward, they'd have 5 years from this date, and then they could reapply, et cetera?
Correct, they would have to reapply after 5 years based on the policy. Correct.
Okay, thank you.
I just wanted to make sure we were all on the same page so that if someone were to come ask us, we would have that answer at the forefront.
So I know we discussed it, but to let the citizens know that whatever group, we'll say example, it was a Boy Scout group that wanted a leader's name on there, that organization is responsible to pay the sign and pay the city worker to put it on there, correct? That way there's no tax dollars going to it.
Right, yeah,
Just
so
so
they
they
would
know.
cover the cost, and B10, under cost, each approved sign shall be charged a fee as outlined on the application form, so the form may change year to year. The fee is reviewed and revised as necessary to cover the cost of design, fabrication, installation, materials, and maintenance over the 5-year life of the program. If multiple sign locations are requested and approved, each additional sign location shall be charged the fee outlined upon the current application form. If it is not approved, the fee or portion thereof would be refunded.
Any other questions for Phil?
I think this is a great program, and I'm glad to see it come up so other people are able to use it and apply.
If there's no other questions, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Resolution number 194, 2022, resolution adopting policy number 75, hiring policy and process. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 194, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
And Barb, I believe you're going to cover this.
Yes, thank you, sir. Very similar to our background check policy, this takes what we're currently doing for our hiring policy and putting it into written form. There are a couple of changes with this. One would be to create an internal posting policy as we continue to succession plan and work with our employees on finding out what they want to do and working with them, promoting them from within. The internal posting policy will allow us to do that. We currently do not have that. So this policy would allow us to identify our employees that wish to move up or wish to move to other positions or do different things within the city and work with them to achieve that. And then the other thing that this policy would do would, for our appointment process, there's a form that we created that essentially the department head and the HR department would work together to fill this out and then approach our city administrator for approval for putting said person into that position. So rather than bringing to city council any appointments under department head, that would actually be approved through our city administrator. The form would be filled out. It would be kept on file in the HR office, and we would ensure that we have one for every position that we fill. And then we are working currently with our legal team because this will make a change in code. And so we are working with our legal team to present to you, hopefully the next meeting, the change in the code to allow that to happen.
Does council have any questions for Barb?
I just have a quick comment. Thank you, because there's nothing more frustrating than being an employee and not knowing a process of how do I get myself improved. So I want to thank you for structuring our HR so that hopefully city employees can figure out how they can be the next Larry Seals. God bless them. But, you know.
I can promise you nobody's asking how they can be living the West Larry Seals.
I would kind of like to echo what you just said, because Barb has done, I think, a really great job of trying to get things into policies and procedures in written form. I think there's been a lot of things in the past that were kind of word of mouth and there wasn't anything written down. And the more you have written policies and procedures, the more consistency you can maintain. So I really appreciate also all your ongoing efforts on trying to really get everything firmed up in the city's HR department. You're doing a great job.
Thank you.
Any other questions for Barb? If not, Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Thank you.
Thanks, Barb.
Resolution number 196, 2022, approving change order number 1 for the Ottumwa Park Campground Shower House and Office Project. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 196, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
Okay, Gene, I believe you're going to cover this.
Yes, sir. Change order number 1 will involve the contractor providing and installing a vapor barrier under the concrete floor slab before the concrete is poured as advised by the architect from Willett Hoffman. The original contract with RG Construction was for $573,872. Change order number 1 is for $595. The new contract amount is $574,467.
Council have any questions for Gene?
Just clarifying, this is still quite a bit under the original budget of like 650,000, right?
Yes.
If there's not any other questions or comments from council, we'll go ahead and have Chris take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Thanks, Gene.
Resolution number 197, 2022, approving an agreement between the City of Ottumwa and the Iowa Department of Transportation through the Traffic Safety Improvement Program funding to construct the Albia Road and North Quincy Avenue roundabout project and authorize the mayor to sign all pertaining documents. Recommendation pass and adopt resolution number 197, 2022.
Is there a motion to approve the recommendation?
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second.
It's all yours, Mr. Seals.
Thank you, Mayor, Council. On July 20th of 2021, Council approved submission of a grant application for safety improvement funds at the intersection of Albee Road and Quincy Avenue. This action will approve the formal agreement with IDOT for funding up to $500,000 of eligible project activities. We will be presenting a design contract at a future council meeting. The design contract and construction costs that exceed the grant amount will be funded from road use and lost. I attached the original key points when we submitted the grant. And just as a kind of a recap, the proposed intersection improvements include the construction of a 115-foot roundabout, which would serve as a traffic calming measure. Splinter islands will be installed to reduce the intersection speeds and notify motorists of the intersection. Improvements will also provide for accommodations for pedestrian and bicyclists and will aid in providing acceptable gaps at that intersection. The proposed improvements are expected to result in a safer intersection and reduce the number of injury crashes per year. This is a replay of the original drone footage of that intersection, and it just kind of gives you an idea of how it currently functions. We do have also a PDF of the approximate proposed 115. You want to go ahead and just roll it up? Do. So, and this isn't the exact location. We have been working with one of the property owners, and we're in the process of purchasing the necessary land on the northeast corner. And then we'll have to work with the other landowner. Ultimately, because we purchased the whole, or we're in the process of purchasing that lot, we'll be able to locate the whole intersection further east, which will reduce the impact on the northwest corner.
Council have any questions for Larry?
So Larry, let's go back in time just a little bit. When the DOT, we applied for a grant at the highway and Richmond and Albia Road, that area. We submitted a grant for a particular amount of funds, and then we voted on the project, and then it came back, and the project, the city's take of it was considerably higher than what we thought we were voting for. Is that going to happen again?
No, what happened in that one, these are supposed to be for individual intersections up to 500 for each intersection. The DOT had looked at and considered those two intersections as one unit. So they did a modified award. This one, we were awarded the full 500,000.
Okay. Thank you.
I got a question, Larry. I see where that 500,000 was already pre-approved in the grant. How much is the project total going to be? And is there money in the budget already for that, or would we have to borrow money for a part?
There's already money in the fund balances for this project.
Okay, so there won't be additional loan to?
No.
Okay.
And one of the things that we did was back when we did the overlay, we had looked forward at these intersections for improvements. When you drive that section, Quincy West, you'll see there's a section that has not been overlaid. It's the original mat, same way to the east, a short distance. We're going to include those pavements instead of coming back in and doing a second pavement job.
Okay, thank you.
Any other questions for Larry? If not, Chris will go ahead and take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
No.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
Ordinance number 3198, 2022, repealing and replacing Chapter 7, Animals and Fowl of the Municipal Code of the City of Ottumwa, Iowa. Recommendation passed third consideration and adopt ordinance number 3198, 2022.
Move the recommendation as presented.
Second. You can have it, Sandra.
Phil, I believe you're going to cover this.
Well, there's not much to say. It's been addressed a number of times. First and second readings both passed 4-1, and it's moved now before you for the third and final reading. It would become effective if approved tonight and upon publication.
She's gone. I think.
She did leave. Okay. If there's no other questions for Phil, we'll go ahead and have Chris take the roll.
Well, I just have a comment that I hope that after tonight that the conversation doesn't stop. I hope we continue to have conversations about this. And I also would like to see us really push the changes out there because let's be honest, people are probably not going out reading the whole ordinance. So, you know, some of those bigger changes, I would like us to push those out there too.
And I think the way that we have presented this, it gives wiggle room. It gives room to grow. So it's not stagnant. And I was approached by someone in the coalition who said just that. It is not all what they wanted, but they do see some good things in there. So it's not a win-win, but it's a one step forward.
So Councilperson Galloway, I guess I'd ask you, what is your thoughts on how the city should push this out? Because I mean, I've said repeatedly that if this thing passes, every citizen that's a dog owner or a pet owner, cat owner in the city limits of Ottumwa has the responsibility to get on the city's website and make sure they become familiar with this revised animal ordinance. So in addition to that, what are your suggestions for how the city can push it out?
Well, we have social media, so I would say that we push some of it out on social media, maybe make the link to the actual ordinance, put it out on social media. I don't know if we've done that before, but maybe just push it out again. It is the responsibility of the people out there, but I think that when we have new ordinances, we should help guide them to it too. So even if we just push it out on social media with the link, that's a direct link to it, I think that would help. So I'm not saying that we have to continuing to go out of our way when you have said it. I know you've said it on the radio multiple times. I've said it, and I'm guessing most other people have said it too. But, you know, if it goes into effect, when did you say, Phil?
When it's published.
When it's published. Okay. Then if we could just do one more like push on the website, like here's the updated ordinance and here's the direct link to it. So
the ordinance won't be updated on our Muni code for a little bit of time. So even though this goes into effect when it's published, Muni code has to catch up and get it published on our website. So if you send it to the link, it's still going to be the old ordinance It will probably take
So
a good 2 to 3 weeks before
Okay.
it's out there.
So then I guess how can we, so even if people have wanted to go out and read it, they've had to go to the minutes then, correct? Or not the minutes, but the agendas.
The packets.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yeah, because the revised ordinance is in the council packet.
so however we can make it out, put it out there, because if people didn't know that it was in the packet, because I did not know that. So I appreciate you letting us know that, Chris. Because I've been telling people to go to the website when it's published. So, yes.
Council have any other questions for Phil? If not, Chris will go ahead and take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway,
No.
Councilmember McIntyre,
Yes.
Councilmember Hull,
Yes.
Councilmember Pope,
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe.
Yes.
Okay, this is a point in our agenda where I would ask if the public has any other topics that they'd like to bring up for consideration that's not on tonight's agenda. If not, I don't believe we have any other petitions, but we do have a communication that I want to give to everybody, and I appreciate Barb for reminding me of this. I think we should be very proud that all 4 all-star teams in the Ottumwa Little League have progressed and made it to the state tournaments, and 2 teams will go to Davenport to play, and 2 teams will go to Sioux City. So I think that is wonderful, and appreciate you for bringing that up. I think we really need to celebrate that.
And they are fundraising for those trips. So if they come to you asking, you can support them very much by giving them a little donation or whatnot. And I'm sure
They're
they
at
can find places to
Applebee's
donate.
tonight.
And
It's always nice to end on a positive note.
Mayor, okay, well then I'm gonna, I also want to say.
Don't
too-
ruin it, Kara.
I'm not. On July 16th, the National Suicide Prevention Hotline released a 988 number. So instead of the long 1-800 number, now people needing help, whether you're for suicide prevention or mental health, 988 is that number. And I'm going to say it one more time, 988 for the National Suicide Prevention Hotline.
And you can call or text that number.
Correct.
And just for clarification, that's for suicide prevention, but there still is a 911 number also.
Correct, yes, but 988 for suicide prevention, you can call or text, and there's someone there that can, that's there willing to talk and listen.
And that's nationwide, correct?
Correct, nationwide.
Mark, did you have something?
Yeah, I just wanted to say, and this is relating to a few conversations that I've had over the last couple of weeks, and I think it's a good point to remind the public on. The official calendar for all community events in Ottumwa is at either the Meet Ottumwa physical website or the Meet Ottumwa social media page. And I think that maybe a lot of people don't know that. But, we hear banter all the time about how there's nothing to do in this town. And maybe some of that is genuinely they just don't know the things that are going on. They are, many organizations are doing, I think, a fantastic job of advertising their events. And then, of course, Meet Ottumwa is doing a great job of advertising those events. But I looked, and I'm going to stand corrected on this. I originally had counted over the last 4 weekends, not weekdays, just the weekends. The last 4 weekends, Ottumwa proper had 31 unique events that were happening over the course. That's an average of 5 events per weekend that are unique. Those were ranging from heavy metal to classical music to children's performances to adult performances, free performances, paid performances, just really across the spectrum. So if people are wondering what events can I go and attend, please get out and look at those, because there really is a lot going on in this community. And if it's a matter of you don't know how to find what events are going on and what's going to suit your individual taste, go to that website. You can find that information and get out and meet somebody.
I would just like to remind everyone of Sister Irene's retirement party will be the 31st. They will be serving food from 5 to 6 at St. Mary's, and then they'll go over to the park and do a presentation over there. So That's the 31st. And she will be leaving Ottumwa and moving to Davenport. So we would love to just celebrate her. And so, yeah, just want to remind everybody to come out and city council just to be there supporting our community. And I think that's a good opportunity.
I'm going to present her with a certificate from the city too on July 31st. Because she's been a wonderful advocate and an asset to not only the Hispanic Latino community in Ottumwa, but for anybody that needed any kind of guidance or help hooking up with needed services. She's going to be sorely missed. Anything else that the council wants to bring up? If not, is there a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
Second.
Chris will take the roll.
Councilmember Galloway?
Yes.
Councilmember McIntyre?
Yes.
Councilmember Hull?
Yes.
Councilmember Pope?
Yes.
Councilmember Rowe?
Yes.
I realize it was a long meeting tonight, but appreciate everybody's patience, and we finally got it all covered. So thank you, everybody, for attending our council meeting tonight.
Thanks for saying you're just creator.